Oh,
Hello,
well,
everyone. Go ahead. Tell everyone hello. It's their
no,
slogan.
we're live. All right. Welcome back, everybody. This week, we're going to be talking about prospecting tips and tricks. And this one for me is a hard one. I used to work for a company where it was government RFPs that you knew when they were
What is
coming
a
out.
RFP for everybody who's not
Oh, yes,
government?
true.
Mr.
Request for
Acronym.
proposal. And
Yeah.
so what
So
that means is any
put a
government
bid. It's like
entity.
a bid kind of thing.
Yep, a bid process. They know when the contract dates are up. So you can just go and scour government websites and you know, oh, that's when this particular contract is coming up. So you know when to even start reaching out to the agencies because if their contract's not up for 3 to 4 years, then you wouldn't put them very high on your prospect list. So going into business, it was completely different because now prospecting is an important thing that I'm very unfamiliar with. What about you, Ed?
Very familiar with it since I got out of the Navy way back when, because that's how I had to get all my business was prospecting, talking to clients. And so, as I always said, the first thing I did was grab Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, all the greats, and figured out what they said to do, and I did it. And that's why you were talking about prospecting today. The first thing I started thinking about with prospecting is visual. I can't say the damn word today. Visualization. Here, I can't even say it. It's like subtle skills for the first 2 years.
Visualization,
Thank
yes.
you. I can do it, but I can't say it.
Mm-hmm.
But that where you do the vision boards, you do everything else back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But now people do something totally different. But I want to kind of get into that part of prospecting and stuff on Thursday. So that's kind of what I want to bring to the table on Thursday. Um,
Sure.
if that works for you. And I guess I'm saying,
Yep.
I don't know where I picked that up at recently.
Mine, as you know, is so. I realize when I'm talking, I always say so. But anyway, so yeah, what we looked at are what are the 9 top types of prospecting that are out there. And of course, with anything else, depending on your industry, depending on what you sell, there are just different factors that will always come into play this. But what are the universal 9 ones that have been out there? So, people used to only be able to sell door to door, then publications came out, then advertising on TVs, online, everything. So what are the different options that are available to you today? And of course, this is how do you find the people first, and then we'll have to figure out. That's what we need as a joker, one of these, Ed, is to bring in somebody who's a CRM specialist, right? Like, what are the different CRMs that are out there? So once you're done prospecting with them, how do you track them? How do you reach back out to them? How do you collect information? More importantly, how do you stay in contact with them?
Dude, Excel spreadsheet could be a CRM. You don't
I
have to
agree.
have a CRM to prospect. You just need to keep track of stuff. The biggest thing that why CRMs work is to do a drip campaign and certain
Right.
things like that. And I get what you're saying. I'm not knocking, but I want to go back to you're talking about, door to door. You were just at a door to door conference, right?
Oh yes, it was 3,000 people. Sam Taggart and team, they put together door to door con. It was pretty interesting because they bring in people who are competitors and invite them all in to learn from the same people. So they
Yeah, but
got
and
along.
a lot of them are different industry though, like roofers,
True.
solar. Yeah.
But it even, I mean, there were like major roofing companies there, major solar. Solar was the largest group of people that were there because with the government incentives, that's like the hottest thing in the market right now. And plus, if you're selling somebody solar, you have to have a newer roof so they can offer 2 products instead of just saying, hey, you need to get your roof repaired. So they were the major amount of people that were there. Then there were people who sell alarms, people who sell pest control. I mean, it was pretty interesting. They had a bunch of different panels, but it seemed like solar was the biggest one because it's a twofer with
Right.
it.
But
But
the
yeah,
problem I
go ahead.
have with solar, and I'm in the industry, you have to have over a 2,500 square foot house. In California, you have to be on PG&E, not MID or TID, a local utility district. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And these people just, for years, have utilized this and preyed on people to get it done. And they have put in, there's this little small house that has a Tesla power pack on it. I'm like, who sold you that for this $300,000 house, which is not a big house in our area? I'm like,
Right.
that was just ridiculous. 1,500 square foot house with a Tesla power pack. And I understand there's good people and bad people in every industry. But one of my biggest pet peeves is if you're prospecting and someone says to you, hey, can I ask you a question? And I
Yeah,
say, you just did.
exactly.
Bye bye.
But it was interesting because, like I said, they're competitors, but yet they all hung out with each other.
Right.
They were all learning from each other. It was pretty interesting. So yeah, that I can't imagine going door to door, facing rejection after rejection, day after day, and then it's really on you because to a degree it's a commodity, right? You don't have a newer technology that somebody else doesn't have. It's selling. yes, there's different brands of shingles. Yes, there's different brands of electronics for alarms. Yes, you can be an organic pest control person versus normal, but these people literally out there in the elements every day, knocking, hoping to bring in business. And most of them were 100% commission. So you don't close, you don't eat type position. And they were all there with good attitudes. Like I said, for being combatants, because that's who they're competing against, they were in pretty good spirits the whole time.
All right. So you have this broken down by different types of prospecting.
Yeah. So what I did is we did some research on what are the top 9 and what are the oldest to the newest in terms of what's used today. Right. And so the first one that comes up is cold calling, which we're all pretty familiar with. You buy a list, you go open a phone book, you do research on the internet.
Book.
Yeah, I know. Some people still have them, So
why don't you say Rolodex while you're at it?
I can say that too.
But have you ever cold called?
Once. I used to be a technical recruiter for a few months before I actually went into technology itself. It was kind of like the movie Boiler Room. Mm-hmm. But every day we had to get on, and here's how it kind of worked. You got online and you had to go hit monster.com, because at the time that was the main website, right? Dice had just come out, but monster.com was where most people went. And you had to get on early and see what company posted a job or what employee posted their resume. And you had to call them and try and get them under your umbrella, but you didn't have a job for them yet. So you're like, oh, hey, I've got all these companies I can introduce you to. Well, who are you going to meet with? Well, until we meet in person or until, we can lock down a deal, I can't really tell you what all customers are there. Now, that was twofold. It was because, one, if you told somebody who the company was, they just cut around you and go directly to the company. And number 2 is sometimes you didn't have anything, but you need to pad up your resume. So when you also inversely lock in a company, you already had a stable of people to offer.
I hate when I don't put on Do Not Disturb on my phone. People always call me when I'm on. But I want to go back. So I actually cold called from the beginning when I first got in the business of real estate mortgage. And then before that, when I was in computer sales. And I remember everybody's like, change the name to like Gold Calling and all that. And it was like, you have to do it, plain and simple. And you have to figure out, you have to get through. So you figure, I'm going to get a hold of 1% out of 10 who's going to actually do something. So I have to get to no's. So I have to get to those 9 no's to get the one I want. It's not a great thing to do, but you need to do it. You could change this from cold calling to, and I know this is the old prospecting, but when you actually are in the business and been there a while, you need to call your past clients all the time, check on them, see how they're doing, and then they will refer you to other people. So it's not something that you forget. It's just changed from where you don't have to do it as much. Nobody really likes rejection, but I had a friend of mine who used to stand by the bathroom at clubs, and he said, because every woman has to come here at one point throughout the night. And it was true. And I was like, that's a unique way to look at it. But so it's really important. This is important part of every business is to calling people, and people are afraid to call. There's call reluctance on even calling your clients about things and updating them. People would rather do something else. I get it, but you have to do this first. In our industry, there was a thing called win by noon or whatever, where you set up everything in the morning and then you got everything done that was important by noon. And then the rest of the day, you didn't have to do everything. You get it all done in the morning, right?
So Tim Ferriss in the book 4 Hour Work Week, he went in and he would call people early in the morning before the gatekeeper got there, right? Like the receptionist, the secretary, whatever, because he found that bosses were often, or decision makers were often there early in the morning or late at night. And so him, by working a few hours in the morning and a few hours at night, he was closing more leads than all of his other peers. But the company he worked for said, yeah, but you're still not working your 8 hours like you should. He ended up getting fired for it. Even though he was working smarter, not harder, they were like, yeah, but you're not putting in the hours. You could do more even during the day. It's crazy because you're not supposed to argue with results, but people still do.
A friend of ours that's in our connection in Vegas, and he was telling me how they're supposed, I don't know if you put some videos out on how they have to call their prospects on Monday for 8 hours and whatever. And we were talking yesterday. He's like, that makes no sense at all because blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what I do is I do Tuesday, Thursdays late. I call, but I set appointments for 5 to 7 on Tuesday night or Thursday night for those people who need to talk at that point, because just because you think they're not home doesn't mean they're not home.
True. Well, in this day and age, most people, it's cell phones. So it's more, are they available? I mean, it's not even how many people even have a landline anymore. So you can catch up with people who, especially I have so many friends now who all used to live around downtown Dallas where I live, and now they live so far north, they've got an hour and a half to 2 hour commute to work and from work. So rather than just listen to radio, they'll actually have conversations because, again, people crave contact. So it is kind of funny. If you're strategic in how you do it, you can accomplish more versus what they call it, dialing for dollars. You're just making phone calls, hoping to reach somebody at some point, which was the original way of cold calling, right? When there were no answering machines, there wasn't text messaging. That was after door to door. That was the main way to find new people.
I mean, I worked for a company that was Glenn Ross movie in the beginning, not the real estate side. It was on the mortgage side. It was pretty brutal. And if you haven't seen that movie, watch the first 10 minutes. It's all you got to watch of the movie. But it's such an all-star cast. And that just shows you how the sales have changed over time. Back then, they'd have to call everybody and sell them out real estate stuff. Now that doesn't even happen that way. But you still need to call and talk to people because if you do something, no one else is doing it, right? I mean, we tell people all the time, this is what you need to do to build your book of business. And it's the same stuff. They go to the same seminars every year and they say the same stuff. Nothing's new. They still haven't done anything and they still come back. It's like, just take one thing out of what they tell you and implement it now.
So it's funny you say that. I'm looking for the quote because I reposted. Sam Taggart did a video, or the way he ended up Door to Door Con was, he said, a lot of you guys leave here motivated idiots. You know, you're gone, you're all excited, you leave here, but then you don't do anything with it. And he's like, you won't go and make these extra steps. He's like, it's only your life that's being affected by it. And I was like, damn, that's harsh, because it's right. A lot of people go to these events and they get into the networking, and networking is good, but it's an escape if you're there to learn something, right? And that's one of the things that's a challenge is sometimes you get involved with, oh, hey, I met this cool person, or I want to learn from this person, but you're there to learn from a lot of people, right? There were so many good speakers and panels and things like that, but a lot of people are just serial. They show up and they don't do anything. And Brad Lee used to call people out like that all the time too. He's like, I see you same people at, event after event after an event. I'm happy to see you, but you're not making progress. And it's true, because there's no accountability with a lot of this stuff that people are learning. So,
and a lot of people in sales have a lot of freedom, and they don't know how to, control that freedom and sets what they need to do throughout their day. Now they can go to chatbot and put in there, make me a timeline, my daily schedule of what I need to do. I'm in sales and make these and it'll help you do that. So if you don't know how to do it, go to Chat GPT, and it'll help you out there.
Stop giving away our secrets, man. There's gonna be too many users on there. I love it.
Microsoft just put in $10 billion into that company.
Well, what they say, the next version of it's going to be 5 times larger.
Yeah, when Google's going, oh my goodness, we're if they have FOMO now. So.
Yeah. Well, you and I were just talking about, I went to an event in Scottsdale, and one of the guys who was a digital marketer said he's worried that his industry is going to go away because of its ability to craft messaging. Copywriting is something that people make a lucrative living on doing right now, and that can knock it out in a few seconds. So, anywho, next one over is kind of what you already led to, which is once you're done cold calling to get to meet people, then you have to network with other people that they may know. So this is where you're hoping, you were talking about calling your warm leads, people you've already done business with before. What events are they going to? Who else can they introduce you to? Networking is one that used to scare the hell out of me. I don't know about you, but you'd go in and like, who's there? What am I going to talk about? And then once you get in, you start doing it, it just becomes a natural movement. You go in, start looking at fun stuff, body language, who's facing each other, who's going to open up to let you in. What are they talking about? How do you not make it all about you? My number one for networking is I hate the question, so what do you do? Because if somebody doesn't like their job and you just ask them what they do, now they subconsciously hate you because you asked them about something they hate at the exact same time.
They wouldn't be at a networking conference about sales or whatever if they hated their job, right?
Well, you'd be surprised. Oh, I'm just talking about a networking event locally versus a conference, right? Like some people just show up for the open bar and not for the actual content and learning. But yes, I've had that before. People just, and I'm like, oh man, I just screwed that one up.
Well, I just ask about why, just do what we always do. Why? Ask why 3 times. Why are you here? What are you, that kind of stuff. And do what is, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So do what you have, listen, actively listen to that. My biggest problem at events, I'll be talking to somebody, listening to them, and then I'll hear out of the corner of my ear a catchphrase over that way about what I do or something. And then I got to work my way over that way now. So
It was interesting. This was a lot of people asked for regular business cards this event. So they had this one in particular. They had a Rep Card, which was an app that you go, you put in all your information. They let you know who's at the show, who's attending. On our badges, it actually had a QR code that led right to your Rep Card. But people still wanted physical cards to take with them this time. And that surprised me because I didn't bring that many, thinking, physical business cards are a thing of the past. So it appears like handing them out is an older school technique, but some people want that little thing that they can carry home with them. Now, of course, this is when, after I got done talking, then people came to meet me at the booth and wanted to ask more in-depth questions versus just random standing around and talking to people. But I was surprised. I went through all of my business cards while I was there.
all 10 of them.
Yeah. Well, I had 11. I like to come prepared.
No, but people are as tech savvy as we can be. There's one thing that your battery never dies on a business card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. Some people say put faces. Some people say don't. Some people say put your personal cell phone. Some people don't. Some people just want a cool name and a fancy title and don't put any contact information on there. And that one never really I understood. I'm
They
like,
didn't want any
that's
referrals. They don't.
yeah.
Want
If you're gonna do that, just put on a little name badge, right? Or like you do at the hotels. It's kind of crazy. But moving over to the next one. So
hold on, before you wait, let's go back to that one. One thing you need
Sure.
to come up with, and we do this a lot of, is your elevator speech.
Yes.
Because when someone asks you, what do you do? I have two different ones. One is if I don't really want to talk to them. And then the other one is if I wanted them to ask me more questions about it.
Right.
Right. So I can say, I'm in the mortgage. What do you do? I'm in the mortgage industry. That's basically, don't bother me. The other one is I help people build personal wealth through home ownership.
Right.
And then that's like, oh, how do you do that? Right. That's
So mine was different. Mine was, I've been in and out of prison the last 20 years. Then they're like, what? Having the shaved head, it helps. And then I explain what I used to do in the former life. So anyway, kind of
I've been in and out of prisons for the last 20 years, but not as a convict.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Next one over, referrals. So we kind of mentioned this before when Ed was first talking. And so once you've done business with somebody, if you treat them right, people are happy to give you referrals. Now, there's some people who press way too hard as soon as they close a deal with, you got to give me 5 referrals. If they're your long-term customer, you can always catch back up with them.
No,
and
you need to ask them through the process. Who do they know that is in the? Because if someone's getting married, they know a few other people getting married. If someone's buying a house, they know a few other people who are thinking about buying a house. Usually when some person's in that transaction, they know somebody else. So you can ask them, hey, I go through the process. How did we do? And all the way through and actively ask them for, do you know anybody else who is in the same situation as you? A lot of people do not like asking that and they feel it's intrusive. I'm telling you, if you want to do really well, your clients want to help you. Here's the biggest problem I have is like some of my clients will say, can I refer you someone? Mm-hmm. Yeah, didn't I tell you I only work by referral? Right. I mean,
yes, you can. Well, one of the things that one of my realtors did that was different is he didn't ask immediately. Instead, he waited. And of course, the realtor, he waited 30 days. So he showed up at the closing, brought us a bottle of wine, some of the typical stuff that people do. But he actually waited 30 days and say, hey, are you settled in? Are you happy with your house? And then he asked, is there anyone else that you can refer to me? And then it felt like it wasn't a automatic, oh, well, this is all just part of the closing, but that he cared after the fact. So as somebody purchasing the house, that stood out to me more than if somebody had asked as soon as they were helping me. So just a different perspective on it.
It depends on how you ask, I think. It depends as you're going through. I don't go, oh, here's your loan application, blah, blah. You're approved. Hey, do you know anybody else in your, that's not how you ask.
But that's what I'm saying. Some people, I've been to somewhere where they hand you something like, can you write down the names of 5 other people that you can? And then it felt like, oh, too much pressure.
That's that roofing and other type of hard sells.
Oh, there was a MLM that was based here in Dallas, and they would try and get you on the phone. And as soon as they got you on the phone, they would say, hey, can we call, who are 5 people we can call right this minute? And I'm like, no, I'm going to prep
your
people.
Mom, yeah, exactly. Your grandma.
But they wanted you to call people. Yeah.
But that, again, you said the keywords MLM, and let's move on.
Yep. So, all right.
Any professional sales are not going to do that. So.
Right. Trade shows and events. This one was an interesting one, just coming from the trade show. A lot of times it's more of, hey, you get time on the stage, or at least for me, time on the stage, then time on the side to talk to people. This is the first trade show that I've had a booth at for my stuff. And it worked out actually better because my talk ran right up to the line, and people had questions, and I was able to say, hey, come and visit me at the booth. And that helped, because then other people who weren't in the talk saw a crowd around my booth and then want to know, well, who the hell was I? And that actually helped out better than not having booths. So that was my first time to do that at a trade show. But this one was interesting. Saw some unique things. Like one of them, I want to say not TaskRabbit, but it was Rabbit something. They set up an RC car track. And if you're familiar with like play therapy with kids and stuff, while kids are playing, that's when child therapists talk to kids, because when they're distracted, they'll tell you the true answers. So while people were sitting here playing with a remote control car and going around the track and having fun like a little kid, reps were talking to them. Hey, where are you from? What do you do? And people didn't feel as guarded because they were distracted playing with the little RC cars. But that was a unique one. There were some food ones that were out there. But then there were the people who just did the typical, I'm going to stand within the 5 or 10 foot by 10 foot space in my booth and hope that you walk by and we make eye contact and try and drag you in. So saw a lot of cool things and a lot of things that are just what I think old school trade shows.
Some people just don't want to interrupt what you're doing. Then there's other people who do. Hey, how you doing today? In the trade show, most people come over to your booth when they know what you have and they need it. The problem is getting that word to them and understanding that. But for me, none of the trade shows wasn't for me to get information. It was to get information so when I went back, I could help my clients, not the other way around. I didn't get clients for this way. You follow me?
Yeah, in a former industry I used to be in, the funny thing was you had to have the knights or tchotchkes, but all people did was come up and grab stuff for their kids. Nobody really stayed to look. They took your pen, they took you whatever else you had at the table, and they walked on. Very rarely was an actual conversation had. And a lot of times at trade shows, you don't know who's a decision maker and who's not. And so when people just come up and grab stuff, you try and talk. And if they're not, they just kind of, all right, thanks. And then they're gone. So
I always disliked the last podcast I went to. They had a little thing where you had to sign different booths to do certain things. And that's not what I like, where you have to go around and sign this card that I was at your table, or sign this I was over here. Maybe it wasn't Podfest, but the last thing I was at, they had something like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm here to win this. Why even come here? So.
Yeah. I went to one, they did the same thing. What they call it, like your international passport, where you were supposed to go around and have every vendor stamp your passport of where you've been. And then you had the potential to win something. Yeah. But like I said,
I guess that's one way to get around, but it's the wrong way for me.
Exactly. It needs to be something more than come in, ask for my stuff, and go. So, all right. Then once you get past trade shows, as things became more available, so publications were out there, then what else could you do is what form of advertising could you use? But the downside to advertising is, unless you're picking a very specific magazine that is only going to 100% of your target audience, it's more of a shotgun approach. It used to start with newspapers, yellow pages, phone books. Yeah.
No, my problem with advertising is you can't niche your market. That's the
problem.
You have to, but now you can in a lot of things. In my industry, the problem is, well, not really. We can get down to owning a house, not owning a house, and certain things, but we can, on Facebook marketing and those kind of things, you can't narrow down age group and you can't exclude certain people, right?
Right.
Technically. But again, this is the difference. When I think of prospecting, I think I'm talking to people, not any of this other stuff that you're going through.
Right.
Because that's different.
All kinds of people are on here, right? So for you, with being real estate, it's a little bit different than like
mortgage.
For what I do. Yeah, sorry, mortgage.
Didn't mean and that's why I wrote my book. Right.
And what's the name of that book, Ed?
Well, before I get there, but the reason I did what I did on my book is because you want to be the authority. So I want to go back a little bit. You don't have to change the screen, but you have to be the authority in your area. And how do you become the authority in your area? That's something we should talk about. But because that alone prospects for you, just like advertising and marketing. And that could be write a book, start a radio show, start a podcast, certain things. Do you have any of that on here? Did I jump ahead, or that's not on here?
Yeah, no, there's just next is going to be content marketing, social
selling. That's pretty much where we're at. Then that's what I'm talking about. And that's important. I didn't mean to jump ahead with your little notes. So did you want to finish up here?
It's almost like you weren't prepared and looked at the notes ahead of time. I'm really deeply hurt by this.
I just, for me, I'm one of those guys that's, let's get to TikTok video, bam, to my face, and let's get done.
Well, okay, so back on advertising, there was one guy who was hugely successful back when they had Sky Mall magazine because people were trapped in there for a couple hours. But now I saw Hulu is saying, like, do you want to advertise on Hulu? And I'm like, how do you find out your target demographic through Hulu? But I just thought that was interesting. So next one over, content marketing. So this leads into more of,
Where'd it go? My book went away. Oh, no.
I know, it hasn't been up there for a little bit.
I'm just messing with you. All right, keep going.
Content marketing. So are you putting out blog posts? Are you going on to LinkedIn, writing articles? What are you doing that people can read to learn a little bit about you? That's one thing that, vlogging a while back was super popular. So was blogs. So people would go out and just write content. And it's pretty crazy what people were able to accomplish just by sharing their information without charging for it. And that's the funny thing is where we started is we came from a society of, oh, well, if you want my information, you have to buy it, to now where you have to share so much free information before people will actually pay attention to you. And then they may buy something from you later on. What you kind of led into.
Well, and back to this, I mean, and we're giving away your trade secrets now with Chat GPT, you go in there and write blog posts and any of this stuff that you want, ask it to do it. It'll write it for you. And then you can go write me 3 more from those bullet points that you just created. And it's a never ending loop where you can do all your blog posts, all the certain things. And I know a lot of content people, Rob and some of those people are like, no, that's not as good as me. Probably not yet.
But is it easier to create or to edit? So even if it creates it, you can edit and put your own personal swing on things. I mean, we did that for this today is we got the list of what are the top 9. And then I went back in the chat and I said, well, tell me in order of when did they come up historically. And this was the list that it reordered to put these 9 in here. So like you said, you can keep refining it more and more. And I can even say, put it in, this one. Oh, there's the book. Show it again.
Just messing around. There you go. There's my book. So I wrote that for my industry, right? To help clients, educate them. Same thing I do my radio show, educate clients on how to buy a house. Because the reason I did that show is because most people, millennials, saw their parents lose their home and thought there's no, I don't want to own a home. But that's how most people build personal wealth. And so I put a book together, the whole process, understanding the 3 most important things: credit, assets, and, your debt. God, I can't even think of today. Credit, assets, and income. And I go through that in the first part of the chapters, and then it goes through the process of the loan and contract and everything else. And it's not a thick book. It's an easy book to read. And I've had a lot of people go, I really like how easy it is to read with the stories up front, breaking down what you're going to tell me, because it's so much easier to understand. But that's being the authority in your area, just like you're the authority that I know in the face recognition, right? That you're the one that people think of, that you have a special skill and it's a secret thing and you know how to do it more than anybody else. Doesn't mean there might not be 2 other people out there, no, but you're the one I know of authority in the area.
Well, Sharon Lecter, and I think I have her book. It's Sharon Lecter's book that's right in here is you don't want to be a expert. You want to be known as the expert. And that's her whole thing is you have to keep putting stuff out there. You were part of a documentary, weren't you? That's even more free content and that gives you authority status while you're out there at the same time.
Yeah, I was part of Hacking Real Estate series. It's just one of those things that's like, you're like, okay, I went from this, now I was in a documentary, I wrote a book, as a radio, got me the documentary, and then I decided to do the book and then I've had clients who like what I'm doing, and then I have a whole office up in Tuolumne County who's like, hey, can we buy these books for our office? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you have your price points? And I go, yeah, but for you guys, I'll do a wholesale price. Make it just because I can't, in our industry, we can't get stuff away for free. It rests with guidelines and certain things. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's smart that there are those kind of guidelines out there. Tries to keep everybody honest. The industry I was in before, you couldn't spend more than $30. And a lot of times you had to get it approved because it didn't want to be seen like government officials were receiving any type of bribes or anything. So they were super locked down. It
used to be $25.
Yeah. It's crazy. There's some that can't even take a pen. So if you go to their site, you're like, hey, I brought you guys some pens. They're like, no, we can't accept those. It was pretty interesting. Next one over, social selling. So this is obviously more and more popular, and that is using modern social media, LinkedIn, Instagram. So many people right now are selling courses and or offering to how do you organically grow your business through posting on a consistent basis. So one of the things you chewed on me about the other week was, and rightfully so, is you said you're not posting at the same time every day, or you're not posting consistently, and therefore the algorithm will kind of slap you down for that, right?
And also, the time of the day you posted wasn't the right time. You were used to posting at a different time, and then you changed it up. You're like, I only got like 3 views. Now, in an hour, normally I get 1,000. And I'm like, well, is it different? And you went and did it. And even myself, I'm not, for the last couple of months, I actually stopped a lot of stuff I was doing and I'm re-looking at everything I'm doing. Every podcast I'm doing, is this something I want to do going forward? Is it being done in the standard I want it to be done at? And that's something you got to do all the time. And it's okay to stop and figure all that stuff out and start back up. And that's okay. People know you're there. I do a lot of lives like we do here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Right. So I get that content out there constantly throughout the week. But as I'm figuring this, what are you smiling about?
I'm just laughing because I'm going to follow up with something that literally I was reading about today or listening to it earlier.
All right. Well, anyway, so my whole thing is you just need to figure out where you are going. Figure that out first before you do anything else. And then go and then retool later. But go ahead.
So 2 things. Well, because literally you were leading into what I was going to say next, and so it made me laugh. 2 things. Like there was a guy I talked to the other week who his old social media was, well, I did a lot of hunting and things, and so I took myself off the brand, and now he's afraid to repost again. And it's like, yeah, but people are going to always Google who are you, right? So going back to with you having the book published, being able to say author and show people your book carries a lot of credibility. But people go no matter who you are and try and look you up on social media at some point. So they'll Google your name, then they go and look at pictures of you because people want to get an idea of who you are. Of course, we hear that a lot from Steve Sims. Then I'm in something called Apex here in Dallas with Ryan Stewman, aka the hardcore closer guy. And what he was talking about is consistency is huge. And the time of day you do it. One of the tips that he brought up the other day was, people are on their phones early in the morning. And then at 4:30, when people have already mentally disconnected from work, that's the other time. That's a high time to post things because people are mentally checked out. And then we learned, I don't even remember what event we were at together, that you have to have subtitles on things because a majority of people are watching their phones at work and they can't listen to your video. So you have to have audio text, or not audio text, sorry, you have to have audio transcribed so it has text in the videos, and that will increase your rate as well.
Well, and a lot of that was like, especially TikTok, you have it on the screen versus what you see, because 30-second you can throw a lot of content on the screen, which you can't say, that fast, and so that's important.
And that app was designed kind of, for lack of a better term, for like ADD-like tendencies. So you have your transcription of the audio, you pop up pictures, you have to keep people's attention because on those mediums, 3 seconds, if you don't capture people, they're already swiping up to go to the next one. So, All right, next one over, inbound marketing. So what are people using on their websites, on social media? So what are they using for search engine optimization? Are you putting alt text in your photos? You name it. So there's all these additional things that used to be, hey, I have a website. Back when websites were probably, hey, I have an actual email address that doesn't end in Gmail. It ends in a company name. Now people are having to go even farther to get higher on the list by creating SEO and keywords to keep them pumped up even more and more.
And it's so crazy because people spend so much money to stay on top and do everything. So I prefer the other way with the social media and doing this other stuff than paying what a lot of people pay for that.
Yes. 100%. Well, and the more that you post on social media, the more podcasts you do and things like that, people are already putting your name out there for you. Like you talked about how much your business has grown when you started doing the lives and the radio show and everything else, versus somebody else who's just getting started. A lot of people buy followers on social media, and you can tell it because they'll go, 2,000, 8,000, 10,000, and then they keep dropping in these droves when you look from month to month versus somebody who's gotten a large following fairly quick. You'll notice if it goes down by 100, but not by thousands. So, all right.
You just said really quick. You had over time. When someone's dead followers, over time is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, but what I mean is, like, for example, I get hit up all the time. I'm sure you do as well in DMs of, hey, buy 5,000 followers for $50. And then the question is, if they're there, this extra 5,000 suddenly hits your account next month, are you down 3,000 of them because they're all bots? They're not real people. And so you can see if you're paying attention to somebody's page, where were they? We always look around because we're curious of, just like on Amazon ratings, how many posts do they have? How many followers they have? How many people do they follow, right? Those are the top 3 things that people look at on Instagram or TikTok. And if you suddenly had, 1,000, and then all of a sudden you have 11,000, and then I come back to your page a month later and you're down to 5,000, it's obvious you bought your audience. But yep. All right.
I've been sitting around 27 to 28 for the last year or two because I haven't really promoted more. It's like I don't want more.
I thought you at least
I only
know
have
30
like
people.
Huh? I only know
you at
5
least know
people.
30 people.
I only know 5. I don't think it's that important because I've had people who go, what's your metrics on your podcast? Who cares?
Right.
It's just you just need that one person who listens to it and grabs it. Because I've had people listen to my podcast and have me on others' podcasts because of it. And it was in the beginning that wasn't that great. But the worst one I had was when we were doing Helping the Brave. We still are. And then we asked somebody to come on, this one company who supposedly helps vets. And they're like, well, what's your metrics? And blah, blah, blah. Are you here to help vets? Or are you here for your metrics?
That's just it.
Even if it didn't matter that we had them, I just was irritated by it and said, I don't want to do business with you.
Like we mentioned earlier, I was at Door to Door Con last week. There were 3,000 people, but it only took one person, right? If you get the one right connection to make a difference. And I met 4 people who, one guy I was really impressed with who bought the course, kind of just because I sat in on his presentation. He's a freaking rock star. But there are other people that I met. They're like, hey, we're going to have you come out to our offices, train our people, you name it, versus the thousands of people that were there. So I'm on the same page as you. And I know multiple people always talk about it just takes one introduction, one person to make a difference. So, and that's the best way to get out there. Last part here is basically account-based marketing. So that is go after certain companies, organizations,
That's what you used to do.
Yeah, my ideal client. Absolutely. So we would go to trade shows. We'd go to a local one. We'd go to across the U.S. one. We'd go to state level versus, we go to county level events versus state level events. That's where our sweet spot was because that's where the people were there. And again, for the industry I used to come from, it was very regimented. You couldn't go take people to lunch. If you did, it could be seen as, bribery or anything like that. So it was hard because you had to go in and get to know people, but yet they had to keep you at an arm's distance at the exact same time for the safety of everybody involved. So
you had to get to know them, but you had to stay further away.
Exactly. It's like playing walkie-talkie versus actually getting to hang out with people.
Well, you just can't. Each person pays for their own stuff. It's not a big deal, right? You can go do stuff in our industry. 20 years ago, back in 2008, the title companies were paying for people for cars and stuff for people and this and that because they were sending all the business. But then the insurance people they got audited and they're like, the client, us as mortgage people or real estate, we don't own. It's not our transaction to say who it goes to.
Right.
So you can't give them the gifts that you were given. I mean, there was people in LA getting major cars. It was ridiculous. Oh, yeah. For the volume. Well, and that's wrong. And you're buying the product. Right. I have people ask me all the time, will you pay a referral? I'm like, no, I can't. It's not allowed. Mm-hmm. I only want to work with people who want to send me business, not because I get paid for me sending them business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have 3 or 4 friends that are pharmaceutical reps, and they talk about the heydays, before their time, where it was like free trips for doctors to all these locations and super high-end dinners where it was just like, hey, let me take you and your wife out and, $1,000 dinner versus now the only way to do lunches, dinners, things like that is you have to have a speaker that's there. You have to note everything, who was there, what showed up. Like they can't even give away golf balls or umbrellas anymore.
I know, but let's move on. We're not there anymore. We're not doctors. All right. We're focusing on people who want to prospect. And these are your things that you can do. And then what's your last thing there?
I would just say the same thing that you just said is that it's different depending on what's your business, what are you trying to achieve. So those are just the top 9 ones that are there.
Right. And so whatever your industry is or how you do it, but you have to do it.
Right.
A lot of people don't want to do it, and that's okay. Go get a 9-to-5 job that you get paid by the hour because you're not going to make it in sales. Sales is very tough. It's a tough racket out there.
Yeah.
I used to be a salesman. What's that from?
That one I don't know.
Glenn Ross, dude. Alec Baldwin says to put down that coffee. Coffee's for closers. And then
see that line I knew. I just didn't.
And he's like, and then he goes like, I used to be a salesman, making fun of the guy. And then there's a lot more lines I don't want to say, but for me, that's how I learned not to sell.
One of the guys next to me at the trade show, he actually sold knives. Like that was still a big thing, but I did think about that. Yeah. So of course they engrave them with all these special things and the packages
Cutco,
you get.
right? Was that
Yep.
Cutco? Yeah.
Yep, Cutco. But it did make me think of the movie. So because they used to get steak knives.
Yeah. First is this trip. Second is knives. Third, you're fired.
Exactly.
Dude, I have
So, all right.
ABC
So
always be closing.
right. All right. So of course, what we talk about most weeks is we're going to go through the ACEs, which is attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and of course, remember to smile. And then we'll be bringing on guests from time to time, which is who's a joker, what's a unique or special skill that you have
Who's
that you
your
felt,
joker?
right?
Now, who's a
You know,
joker?
that's helped you. Well, I mean, who's the jokers? Who's going to be our guest?
Well,
And
no,
not
I know, but it's the joker is what unique skill you have or that
Right.
you can learn to make yourself better in the industry. And then we'll bring somebody on that's going to talk about that.
Exactly. And
You
then
can call
sometimes
it.
we'll bring on a jackass too. So
There you go. Just not Batman.
yeah. Hey,
Not Batman.
you calm down. You calm down.
And
All
you're
right.
wearing a Batman shirt.
I did today. Anything else you want to add for today?
I know you kind of went over the different types, but I really want to get more in depth on how to do certain things. And I'd like people to reach out to us and tell us what they want to hear. What do they need us to go over? Because it's important for not us just to talk for 40 minutes about what we want to talk about. I want people to understand we're here to help you in any way at all. So let us know what you want to know about or how to do things differently. And we'll bring that to the table also.
Absolutely.
But I think the biggest thing that helps a lot of people is I can't even say, God, I give up.
Visualization. I can say it for you.
Visualizing where you want to be and what do you want to get there and what are you willing to do to get there? I mean, what are you willing to give up? I used to have a board that I put all the stuff on there that I wanted, right? And I don't know if that's a real great thing these days, but for me, I'm like an athlete. I think about it, close my eyes, think about it, go through the process and do everything. And that's how I figure out how I'm going to do something. I'll have my interview or talk with somebody before I have it because I visualized it.
Mhm.
So I try to get it.
Most people that you see that are, I would say, uber successful will all reference something of that nature. Even Gary Brecka, he did an interview about how he met Grant Cardone, and he visualized it before he went over there. He's like, I visualized closing the deal and with Grant Cardone being my business partner. And sure enough, later on, it happened. Brad Lee talked about when he was selling cars that he would go in and he would visualize money raining down on him every day before he went and sold the lot, and that how he was going to help people by giving them a vehicle. And people visualize that. And so many people I watched over December, people were working on their 2023 vision boards. Now, there's a cool app called Mind Movies that if you don't want to go create a physical vision board, you can kind of create your own like YouTube video that you can play for yourself. Or my friend Joe Ingram, he actually has one that every year he creates a new PowerPoint and he puts it to music. Why does he put it to music? Because then when he's driving somewhere, he can play that song and it triggers back that memory of his vision board before he goes out.
Right.
So
We're just getting rid of my whole thing we're going to talk about.
Damn it.
No, I just think it's so important to have that. Really amazing athletes will do it before they do whatever the game is. It's so important to figure out where you want to be and focus on that. And that's where a lot of people just they don't know where they want to be. They just go through each day. I'm going to work. I'm going to sell this. My goal is to help 40 families a month get into homes. That's it.
Bradley just did it's nice that you can say, I want to make a lot of money, but you have to get specific. What do you want? How much is it going to be? And how are you going to do it? And you have to break it down to quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily goals. And exactly with what you just said. So,
and just be careful if you say like, I want to do 40 loans a month, which is so much in income. It's so much nicer if you say, like I did, 40 families, and people don't think you're all money grabbing. You can be money grabbing, just they don't need to know about it.
Right. Well, if not, you come across as having commission breath, and nobody likes that at all. So,
no, here's Altoid.
Yes. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Ed?
No, that's it. You ran the show today. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Of course, we're here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sometimes we're bringing the Joker. Sometimes it's just us talking. So as Ed said, reach out, let us know what questions you have, because while we do like to hear ourselves talk, we also want to hear what's interesting to other people at the same time. The main reason we kicked off the first ones like these are so you can get to know a bit about who we are and what we're willing to talk about, which is you can pretty much see we make fun of each other and are open to talking about pretty much anything you guys want. So let us know.
You made fun of me? That's it.
Well,
I'm outta
I did
here.
before you joined.
Okay.
Have a
All
great
right,
day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. I'll take care of it.